Is engineering graduate school worth it? That is the question and the topic of today's video. What's going on, you guys? My name's Ben. Welcome back to Faith and Fortune Academy. I'm very excited to be talking about this particular topic because graduate school, engineering school, it's something I've got a lot of experience in. And today I'm going to be offering it from a Christian corporate savage worldview. So, what does it look like to be a Christian and navigating engineering graduate school? We're going to be diving into this topic today, and I'm very, very excited. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So first and foremost, who am I? So my name is Ben. I'm the founder of this channel, Faith and Fortune Academy. I'm first and foremost a follower of Jesus Christ. I currently make over six figures. I got a 50% funded undergraduate degree and a fully funded graduate school degree in engineering, which I'll be talking about in this presentation today. I secured a bunch of full-time offers after graduation from 3 different Fortune 500 companies, and my goal is to help Christian men navigate corporate America without losing their souls. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So why did I pursue engineering graduate school? Well, there was a certain global catastrophe of 2020. I'm sure if you do a quick Google search, you can figure out what that is, read between the lines. But yeah, that happened. And yeah, it wasn't a lot of fun. It was not fun being stuck indoors all day. And it also made me think about what my prospects were going to be in terms of future job opportunities. I saw a lot of my friends who were working full time in jobs get laid off or lose their jobs. I saw a lot of friends who just graduated enter the workforce and basically have next to nothing open. So the outlook was not looking great. Add to that, my undergraduate degree just wasn't cutting it. I was very grateful to have pursued biomedical engineering. I liked it. It was enjoyable in terms of experimenting with a lot of different things in terms of like, okay, do I want to do medicine? Do I want to do more problem solving engineering, more circuit stuff, right? I get to take classes in a lot of different things. Unfortunately, and any BME you talk to will probably tell you the same thing, it's not great when you're a jack of a lot of different trades. A lot of companies are like, no, can you do this one thing? No, you can't. Okay, then we don't want you, right? They want electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. And unfortunately, BME just does a little bit of everything and not a whole lot. It doesn't go very deep in any one thing. So it wasn't going to cut it. And I didn't really want to go to med school at that point. So I was like, all right, well, I can't really get a job super well with this degree. And again, it's not impossible, but it was just not doing me any favors. A lot of my friends and mentors told me, hey, Ben, I think it'd be a good idea for you to at least give graduate school a try, right? You know, you seem like you've got the drive for it. You seems like this would be something that you'd be really good at. So yeah, a lot of my friends just told me, hey, Ben, go for it, see what happens. As I'll get into in the next couple slides here, it was free, so it didn't cost me anything from a financial standpoint. So it's like, okay, why not? I don't have to pay anything financially for it. The only cost in this case is going to be time and energy, but you know that doesn't seem to be too bad of a trade-off there. And especially because for my particular program is going to be 2 years. And we'll get into the specifics in terms of like how long the program should be, how long you should take to do it, all that good stuff. And then finally, the estimated ROI of the degree seemed to be worth it. So the degree I was going to get was industrial engineering. And that was a degree I had heard so much positivity from all of my friends who were in it. They loved what they were studying. And they were getting jobs at really big companies, including, you know, Deloitte, the big consulting firms, right? P&G, Procter & Gamble, had a friend go there. They absolutely loved it. And the job prospects were incredible. And I basically told myself, like, yeah, why not do this? You know, I really wish it was something that I discovered in undergrad, you know, maybe my freshman or sophomore year of college, but I only discovered it, you know, tail end of junior year going to senior year. So it's like, all right, well, if we're going to do industrial engineering, we might as well go get it as a master's degree. So how did I ultimately end up deciding on which schools I wanted to apply to? So I said, okay, cool. I think industrial engineering is cool. Why was that the field I picked, and then what were the schools that I picked here? So there were a number of factors that I did when it came to deciding. So first and foremost, prayer, of course, talking to God and saying, you know, hey, what exactly, Lord, do you want me to do? And this was a lot of journaling, it was a lot of prayer, just seeing kind of where the Spirit was leading me, right? And I don't want to make this super spiritual. I mean, I do. It is a spiritual concept, but I feel like a lot of people will say, you know, they'll pray about something for an extended period of time and they just don't really do anything. They don't take action. That's why I actually recommend this book right here, Just Do Something by Kevin DeYoung. It's really, really awesome. It's spiritually based and grounded. It's rooted in scripture, but it also gives you a very practical blueprint for taking action, right? As a Christian, you know, we're called to be followers of Christ, and the Bible tells us to, you know, fear God, keep his commandments, right? To love God and to love your neighbor, right? but it doesn't give us a whole lot of specifics in terms of, okay, well, which job should you pick? You know, what schools should you go to? Things like that. So really, it's just cultivating a deeper relationship with God and then figuring out what your preferences are, right? So what are the things that you genuinely enjoy doing? So it's kind of like I mentioned before, I could have gone to med school. There technically wasn't anything stopping me from going to med school. I just didn't have the desire for it or the drive for it. Didn't really align with the values I had at the time. But doing something like industrial engineering for graduate school, that absolutely seemed to be something that really piqued my interest. You know, I really enjoyed numbers, enjoyed problem solving, systemizing things, optimization, data, all of that fun stuff seemed to add up towards what I wanted to do. So yeah, I basically just said, you know, at some point you kind of just have to say, you know, I really like what Pastor Mark Driscoll says. You know, at some points you just say, okay, what do you want to do? You know, if you're in Christ, if you're following God and you're seeking to align with His will, you're obeying the fundamentals that He's laid out in Scripture, you know, then you basically have the freedom to choose. And sometimes God will close a door, but, you know, He'll open others. And it's up to you. Okay, you get to pick whatever you prefer, which is awesome. So I also consulted friends and mentors. Again, they kind of helped guide me. They helped give me, you know, ideas. I actually reached out to friends who were in other schools, and I asked them, hey, how do you like it here? You know, what do you think about this? Again, that aforementioned global catastrophe of 2020 also really helped, as I'll get into the next slide, actually, one of these next two slides. That actually helped finalize which graduate school I ended up picking. And then finally, the research. So I did research beforehand. I was thinking like, okay, well, what am I interested in? And if you go to graduate school, you're most likely going to be doing some kind of research in some capacity. So you got to ask yourself, okay, if you're going to be forced to work on something for a number of years, what is a topic that you'd at least be somewhat interested in, you can stick with? So my application process, I decided, like I said, industrial engineering during my junior year of undergrad, and I ended up keeping my application list pretty short. I applied to 6 schools during my senior year of undergrad. I kept it very, very short so I could focus and really concentrate on those programs. And I reached out and found professors that were doing research in the area that I was interested in. So it was industrial engineering. I think there were like, 50 some programs in the country. So I narrowed it down basically and just said, hey, where all do I want to, so there's actually a few things that I ended up picking my schools. I wanted to go off location. I wanted to go off of just how big the school itself was. And to be perfectly honest, location was kind of the big one. I was like, shoot, I'm going to live here. I've got to make sure I actually enjoy where I'm living at. I've had mentors who picked really prestigious elite schools and then hated the location or hated the weather or whatever it is, the climate. Very, very important. Anyway, so applied to about 6 or so schools in my senior year. I got rejected by 2 of them and accepted to 4. So I was able to get 4 of those school offers. And so it really came down to Ohio State and Georgia Tech, really, were the 2 schools I was looking at. So I was already at Ohio State for my undergrad, so to be perfectly honest, I was leaning towards, hey, going somewhere different, doing something new. So I locked in for Georgia Tech. And everything was great in May. I was like, okay, awesome. I signed the offer letter and everything. Everything was going hunky-dory. It's the #1 school in the country for industrial engineering, so we're really good to go. Again, though, that aforementioned global catastrophe had implications. So the funding that I was offered, unfortunately, got cut, and it was crazy because I'd read about it happening to a lot of people online, and it happened to me and a lot of my friends too. Our funding got cut for whatever reason. They decided midway through, hey, sorry, we're not actually going to pay. They still offered me the seat. Hey, do you still want to come and pay us, exorbitant out-of-state tuition to come to Tech? And so at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not really feeling it. And again, though, by the grace of God, one of the professors I'd reached out to at Ohio State reached back out to me and was like, hey, Ben, a spot just opened up in my lab. Would you be interested in coming to do research for me? And that, of course, means that everything's fully paid for. And I said, sign me up. Looks like we're staying at Ohio State. And that's where I ended up again. So did Ohio State from undergrad and for grad school. And honestly, because of that aforementioned global catastrophe of 2020, it was perfect. I definitely think it's good to stretch and go to new locations, but the issue with this is that, again, everyone's stuck indoors, and so it's going to be very, very hard to meet new people. So for me, it's like, hey, I've already got friends here. I know the layout. I know where everything is. So that's one less thing I have to worry about, especially with something like graduate school. It's something that I can really just not have to worry about or focus on. So, as I mentioned before, this is my channel here is Faith and Fortune Academy. So it's a program that I made. I make these free YouTube videos basically to help Christian men successfully navigate corporate America without losing their soul. So the whole idea behind this is being as innocent as a dove but wise as a serpent, as Jesus told the disciples in Matthew 10:16. Again, a lot of the advice that I'll see on YouTube, it tends to go on one of 2 extremes. It's either very, very basic, like, oh, tailor your resume. Okay, what does that mean? What does that specifically look like to tailor your resume? What does, just work really hard and your boss will notice you? It's like, okay, but how do you make sure you don't burn yourself out there? Or what kind of work am I supposed to be doing? And then you've got other advice that's very unethical. That's like, oh yeah, put in the bare minimum effort. It's like, the Bible doesn't say to do that. It says, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. So that's the whole reason I made this program, was basically to find that middle ground of like, hey, we want to navigate corporate America as Christian men, but we also don't want to lose our souls in the process. We don't want to serve money. We want to serve God ultimately and serve our fellow man. So that's why I made this program. I've got over 11 years of experience in corporate America and academia combined. So I've learned a ton in my entire journey here, and I really wanted to just basically condense and shrink that down. So again, these videos on YouTube are free, and I hope you get a ton of value out of them. If you are looking to go deeper, my program's in the link in the description below. And in that, I include things like email scripts that I sent out to professors that got me the full rides worth over $60,000, as well as the productivity hacks that I used to get over a 3.9 GPA in graduate school. So yeah, if that's something that interests you, definitely click the link below. But anyway, back to the video you came here to watch. So, quick day in the life. So again, because of that, sound like a broken record right now, but that aforementioned disaster of 2020, global disaster, I basically condensed my program down into 3 semesters, including 1 summer of research. So basically what this looked like was I was balancing out 3 to 4 classes. It was very, very similar to undergrad in graduate school. So I took about 17 credits per semester, and I would just balance my time between all 3 of those programs, 3 to 4 of those classes. And they were really, really fun. So my specialization, I did industrial engineering, but I took a wide variety of courses, including, some courses in data science, learning about statistics and R and Python. That was super fun. Also took some courses in ergonomics. And so learning a lot about, the human body and optimizing workspaces and environments to optimize human health. That's super cool. As I was doing that, I was also doing research at OSU East Hospital. And so at this hospital, I was doing a ton of research in terms of getting, it was actually, my research project was all about basically optimizing the turnaround rate, the turnaround time for getting one patient into the emergency room and then getting another patient out of the emergency room. So optimizing the speed of that and finding ways to cut down the amount of times during the surgery, and not so much during the surgery, but at the end of each surgery and the beginning of the next surgery. So, you get more and more of those surgeries in, that's a lot more money and a lot more revenue for the hospital, because each of those surgeries is about $2 to $3 grand, sometimes even more, depending on the complexity of the surgery. And so yeah, that's a lot of money that they're leaving on the table. So that's definitely something that I really enjoyed doing. I did a lot of working out. So yeah, when you have a lot more free time here, you have the flexibility to basically do what you want. So I was hitting the gym. I got these Bowflex dumbbells. Let me rephrase that. I got the Bowflex dumbbells during the first part of that global catastrophe, and those things lasted me for a very, very long time. So I was just lifting those things, doing full body workouts in my apartment. Of course, when that got old, I'd go ahead and mask up, and I'd go ahead and head to the gym, the rec center, and just start lifting more weights and getting a little bit more social, all that fun stuff. I did lots of walking. So this is, again, something that you're gonna have a lot of time doing. So I would walk around a lot. I got like maybe 20,000 steps per day just from walking around, being outside, being in nature. It was very, very refreshing. Or even just pacing in the apartment, something I would do if I was just bored and didn't have much to do. I'd just pace around and just think. It was a lot of fun. I read a lot of books as well. So this, I'd say, was really when I got on self-improvement, and I'd say godly self-improvement. A lot of books in terms of the classics. You got Atomic Habits, Can't Hurt Me, Essentialism, just amazing books. And this is really when I got into self-improvement, I'd say, is really right around this time period. I was fortunate that, I wasn't like spending hours upon hours just playing video games and slacking off in school. I definitely had a foundation, but this was really when I started to take things seriously. And another thing too is just having those virtual hangouts with friends, phone calls, right? Because you like to be social. Of course, everyone got Zoom fatigue, but it is what it is. What can you do? So it's funny, as I was going back through this, I realized there was a ton of things I really loved about working or being in engineering graduate school. I loved that I was working on useful materials that I enjoyed and found interesting. That was one of the things that I did not like about undergrad, was I would take so many classes that I literally to this day have never used ever again. That's stuff that I never use, and frankly, I find hard to even think of why I would use them nowadays. So I was actually able to focus on material that I liked, and this is the crazy thing they don't tell you about as you're growing up. K through 12, the education system is when you work on stuff you actually enjoy doing, you tend to do way, way better. Right? There's this whole thing of like, oh no, don't pursue your passion, just focus on what makes you money. And that's a very low view of ambition. It's like, why not both? Why not find something that I thoroughly enjoy doing and that makes me money? It's a scarcity mindset. It's like this false dichotomy, right? It's like, okay, I can either pick the thing that's going to make me a ton of money, but I'm going to hate my life and be miserable, or I can pick this thing over here that's enjoyable, but I won't make a lot. Of course, there's a whole spectrum of things, right? Ideally, you want to pick something that's going to make you a ton of money and you can enjoy, right? Very easy example is, okay, if you a few years ago, it would have been great, is if you liked coding, then great, fantastic. You can make 6 figures working remote. Now it's a lot harder to do that, but you get what I mean. So I liked that I was focusing on material I enjoyed. There were a lot of brilliant and caring professors I got to work with. So I loved every single one of my professors. That previous professor that recruited me, he was amazing to work for. Super smart, brilliant guy, and very down to earth, very, very smart. And they would hold your hand, but they were also very, they had high standards, but they definitely helped you get to those high standards. So I love that they were always willing to help and, stay late during office hours and all that fun stuff. Also had a very intelligent and collaborative cohort of peers that I worked with. So very sharp guys. Every single person I worked with in my cohort was amazing. I still have, really fun memories of us, doing homework sets together, at 2 a.m. And, I remember during our very last presentation when, it was me and one other guy, we finish out the class, we give our presentation, and we all celebrate and get euros afterwards, right? That was a really fun memory. But yeah, just amazing guys. They're all doing great. I think one's at Tesla, another one's doing his PhD now, he's becoming a professor. But yeah, really great guys. The grading was a lot less harsh. So in undergrad, it felt like they were punishing you for every single mistake you made. Partial credit was laughable. And the professor just really didn't seem to care if you passed or failed. It's like, okay, you failed. Okay, whatever. Get out of my sight, And of course, the lecture sizes were massive. At least at Ohio State, they were massive. Maybe it's different if you're at a small liberal arts school. But but here in graduate school, no, they care. They actually want you to succeed. They will actually sit down with you and help you at any sticking point or any point that you're stuck at. And they will tell you point blank, like, hey, study for this. It's going to be on the exam. Right? None of this like, oh, maybe, study these 30 pages and then you get a question on the problem that doesn't have anything to do with any of that. None of that trickery or buffoonery, at least in the program I was in. So, that I will say that's going to be a point I'll bring up later, but that was something that I did not have to deal with, thankfully. I really enjoyed answering questions for students. That was surprisingly very rewarding. I liked being, a teaching assistant. I enjoyed answering the questions that students had over the course. I taught an intro ergonomics course, and it was really fun because just seeing the way it clicked for a lot of those students was super rewarding, and it actually gave me a passion and an idea for teaching and wanting to share concepts and make things easy for people. The practical skills, I use a ton of those today. I mean, shoot, the physical fitness stuff, the mindset trainings that I learned in a lot of my courses, right? So, one very practical example, one of my professors gave me, she was like, it's the idea of hindsight being 20/20. A lot of people will say, like, a disaster will happen, and then people will say, oh, well, you should have done this, this, and this. Then this disaster wouldn't have happened. And she pointed out, well, put yourself in the shoes of that person. They're not seeing the clear path that you have in the future. They're just seeing a hazy cloud full of different options, right? It's kind of like in a video game. You don't know where all the best points are. It's, the map's grayed out. You have to explore and go. Versus at the end of it, somebody who has the cheat codes can go, okay, I have to do, A, then C, then, G, whatever. They're not going to know that in that moment. So that's a mindset that I took that literally has stuck with me to this day, and something that I think about as I, progress on future challenges and problems like that. I made really good lifelong friends in Bible study too. So I got involved in a Bible ministry on campus. And this is really when I got closer to God too. I was spending way more time in the Word and praying a lot more, and it was amazing. And I made some amazing friends there. I still keep in touch with a lot of them to this day. One of them's one of my really good friends now, who's in the city I'm in right now. It's awesome. And I also grew out my hair for the first time. So yeah, I actually used to have just the basic military short hairstyle. And then COVID happened, and I was like, all right, let's just grow it out. Let's just see what it looks like. And so I grew it full blown, down to the shoulders. It was really awesome. Got a ton of great compliments on it. And so yeah, it was really, really fun. It definitely helped me grow thicker skin when you're getting, comments on it all the time, as it's growing out. And then of course, it's like, once it finally gets to that length, it's like, people are like, oh, it looks cool. Great job. Nice job there. So yeah, that was really fun. What I didn't love. So surprisingly, this is very, very short. I did not like the fact that the research was all consuming. And so keep in mind, guys, this was when I actually liked what I was doing. no matter what you do, you're going to be doing a lot of it. You're going to be reading papers, you're going to be coming up with new experiments and ideas and things like that. So make sure that you really, really enjoy whatever it is that you decide to go in and focus on. Okay, like really think it through and think, okay, do I want to go deeper on this topic? And if the answer to that is no, that's completely fine. Just be aware that, graduate school might not be for you, depending on the factors that we're going to go into in a little bit here. I didn't like having to grade papers. It wasn't so much that it was this intellectually difficult thing. It was just very, very time consuming. I think that's the big key of entering graduate school is it is a very time consuming thing. So you're going to have to, basically sit there and grade papers. I actually remember one night distinctly, there was a high school reunion that was going on with some of my buddies, and I was going to go to it, and then I literally get handed a huge stack of final exams that I now have to spend the night grading because it's due the following morning at like 10 a.m. And there's no way I'm going to, want to wake up early to do that. So I said, all right, cool. I guess I'm just going to do this for the rest of the evening. So yeah. And then just long hours in the lab, just long hours. You're just gonna have to do it a lot of work. It's really just sheer volume. So, it is what it is. It can be tolerable as long as you like it. And of course, I've got this image here on the bottom right here. It's a doctor, a nurse not being too happy. I deep dive more into the full blown guide that I have in my course, but we'll just say some of those nurses and doctors were not the friendliest people. I'll just leave it at that. It definitely made it very mentally draining. And I will say that when I got to the end of my summer research project, I was very happy to be done with it. So yeah. So, should you do it? After having said all of that, should you do it? And I'm going to give you the answer that everybody loves. It depends. It depends entirely on your goals. If your goal is to make more money, I honestly recommend you get a bachelor's or a high-value bachelor's, I will say. Get a bachelor's degree, like, an engineering degree or something. Like, it doesn't even have to be engineering, to be honest. It could be like business analytics, something like that. So, some degree of analytics, or something that you've looked ahead in the market and you've confirmed, oh, okay, cool. Like nursing, for example. Okay, cool. This is something that there's a lot of jobs for. This is something that I can, get a lot of jobs in that pays pretty well. And honestly, I wouldn't even worry about the salary. I'll be completely honest. I would look more at, like, yes, salary is of course important, but more so like the flexibility of that role, right? So if you get a very specialized degree like petroleum engineering, yeah, you can make a lot of money with that, but you're also going to be limited in terms of where you can go. It's going to be Texas, Oklahoma. And that's fine if you want to go work in those places, but it's just something to be aware of. So I personally would recommend getting a bachelor's. If you are going to get a master's, again, you want to be obsessed with the field of study, or at least have it something you can tolerate. But even tolerate would be dangerous because eventually it is going to wear down on you. So it would be something that I would make sure you really enjoy. I would do it if you're going to pivot fields, right? If you're going to pivot, if you're like me and you study, one field and you want to switch to something else, or if you want to completely switch, let's say you did business for your undergrad and you're like, hey, actually, I kind of want to do engineering. And so then you pick something that's, a little bit more adjacent towards that, like systems engineering, something like that, right? Or you go get your MBA, something like that. It's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. That's, a master's is a really quick way to be able to do that. If you want to do a PhD, I definitely don't recommend it. I do not recommend getting a PhD. It's very high stress. It's low pay. You're going to be very overqualified for most of the jobs that are in R&D. It's going to be, unless of course you're, directing research or something like that, then of course you have to have the PhD. That's, there. Academia is also a giant pyramid scheme that every PhD student I talked to, I said the exact same thing. So it's not just me conjecturing that. I feel like a lot of videos on YouTube will paint that in a very rosy picture of like, oh, well, PhD is not that bad. Just be aware of what you're getting into. And these are like brilliant people I've talked to, like from Georgia Tech, right, from Michigan, not soft schools here at all. Like these are some of the top schools. And these are like really, really intelligent students. And they're like, yeah, no, if I could redo it, I wouldn't get a PhD. They're trying to get out. So if there's something you really want to focus in and hone in on, if you want to teach, for example, although even with that, you can teach like anywhere really. You can teach on YouTube. You can teach really in a community college with a master's degree, I believe. It's like you don't need a PhD for that. And even for the salary component, it's really not, especially in this economy, it's going to be a lot less openings, things like that. I've seen people take PhDs off for other things. But yeah, I'll say this. If you are going to go to graduate school, definitely 100% make sure you get funding. Okay? Make sure you get funding and make sure you do internships while you have the degree because that is going to make you the most marketable thing ever. The degree itself isn't what makes you valuable in the marketplace. It's the skills that you develop, and not just the skills like, some cutesy like, oh, I led a lab. It's like, okay, well, what did you actually work on? What were the quantifiable results that you actually put on paper? That is what's going to be the most valuable thing. So yeah. So again, guys, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching this. Again, Faith and Fortune Academy. I made this to help Christian men navigate corporate America. Of course, you don't have to be Christian, but this is what I tailor my content towards. Yeah, and like I said, I've got over 11 years of experience in this. So, my idea is to basically give you guys the cheat codes. You don't have to go through the hard lessons I had to learn. It'll pan out and make an easier path for you. And again, in that course below, I do have a bunch of email scripts that I sent out to professors that got me full rides. This is over $60,000 in funding, and the productivity hacks that I used to get over a 3.9 GPA. So yeah, if that's something that interests you, go ahead and click on the video below. But otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.